Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BenchPress 2022, the results from the largest survey of UK independent agencies. I'm so pleased that so many of us have joined us online, and also that we're here in front of live, real people in London. I will do to people. There's your answer, there's your answer. It's genuinely wonderful to be here, and so grateful for all of you for making it, and pleased that you can join us online too. It's fantastic. Tonight, you're in for a real treat. Not only will I be sharing the latest benchmarks for agencies, but I also will be sharing insights that have the power to transform your performance, not just this year, but for years and years to come. That is the magic of benchmarking. And tonight is an interactive event. You can join in on Twitter by tagging in the WOW Company and also using the hashtag BenchPressLive. You can also ask questions, and I'll be joined by Rory Spence, who helped me put together the report at the end of the presentation, to answer your questions. Go to wowco.uk/questions. We're using Slido. It's your opportunity on there to vote for your favourite questions, and I look forward to answering those later. All of the results will be emailed to you after the event. And tonight, in many ways, is just scratching the surface. There's a great big chunky report heading your way straight after this. But tonight, I'll be sharing some of the headlines from that. Tonight is also a celebration. And this is what we are celebrating. So a decade ago, this is where it all started, round the table at the WOW Company. And for those of you not familiar with WOW, we are an accountancy practice that works with agencies, typically between 8 and 80 staff. And we were sat around this table doing the thing that we do often at WOW, which is trying to work out how we can add more value to our clients, how we can add more insights and give them the information that are going to help them grow their businesses. And as part of this, we thought, well, hang on a minute, we've got around about, at the time, we had around about 100 agency clients. We had a plugin that we could, piece of software that we could attach to Xero. I thought, wouldn't it be fun to benchmark those 100 or so clients and see what came out? And that was the start of a journey that's led here today. And along that way, there's been several key milestones, and I just thought it'd be fun to share a few with you. It all started in 2012. That first report was published using just data from WOW clients, just 100 WOW clients, and it was only 8 pages long. And even that was a bit of a stretch. When I look back at it, well, you can look back at it, you can link to all of these reports in this year's version. There was a front cover, a back cover, 3 pages of commentary, and I think it only had 3 stats, a stat on each page. But we sent this out, and agencies loved it. You know, they loved the fact that it showed them what was possible. It showed them what other people were doing, and it inspired them to take things further, to better themselves and get better results. The following year, we not only took data from WOW clients, we launched our first survey. So we gathered data from a wider source. And by 2014, the report had more than doubled in size. Report number 3 was 17 pages long. By the time it got to 2016, it had grown to 24 pages, and that was the point we decided to bring everyone together and have an event like this. And then it kept getting bigger. By 2019, the report was 43 pages long. That's a lot of stats. 2020 was a big year for benchmarking. We had enough people taking part that allowed us to split the reports into a report just for agencies under $1 million fee income and a report for agencies over $1 million fee income. And that was a pivotal moment because, as you will know, the stats for both those groups are different. And it's really important that we can show you how you're performing against your peer group. Last year was a big year. We really went to town with it. We published 10 reports, including reports for freelancers and agencies globally, as well as UK regional reports. If you haven't seen those, then please take a look at them, particularly the UK regional ones. They're really, really interesting. The reason we were able to go global was thanks to MailChimp & Co. It's a wonderful community for those of you that use MailChimp with your clients. And if you do use MailChimp with your clients and you're not part of that community, you really ought to check it out. It's a bit of a no-brainer. It's free to join, and there are some great tools. MailChimp helped us elevate things and take things up a level. And the other thing that has helped us take things up a level every single year our BenchPress participants, you guys. And a massive thank you to everyone who has taken part in BenchPress over the years. Honestly, we couldn't do it without you. From that first 100 all the way up to over 2,000 people who've taken part in BenchPress this year. Now, each one of these milestones is significant because every single person that takes part allows us to do more with the data. Someone said to me this year, why would I bother taking part? I'm going to get the report anyway, eventually, further down the line. And of course, they're right. But of course, if everyone had that attitude, then we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have these insights, and we wouldn't have this opportunity to take things further and elevate our performance. So the other thing that's really interesting, actually, is I speak to a number of agency owners who say, we actually complete the report right at the start of January, or complete the survey right at the start of January when it first comes out, because that gives us an edge. We don't need to wait till March to see the averages, because it's already got us thinking about some of the metrics that we need to be doing better on. And they have a 2.5-month head start before the report's actually released at the end of March. So I know some people who use this as the center of their strategy and encourage you to do the same. So please, when that email comes out in January next year, please take part. It helps make today possible. But today isn't really about benchmarking. It might look like it is, but it's not. Today is really about helping you build a more beautiful business. This philosophy of building a beautiful business is something we're incredibly passionate about at WOW. We believe that businesses should be a force for good. And a beautiful business is one that is led with purpose by people who really care, is guided by a clear strategy, and is soulfully grown. Businesses like all of yours, that's why you're here. And today I'll be sharing benchmarks to help you on that journey to building a more beautiful business. What we thought would be really interesting in your quest to build a more beautiful business is to find out what was most important to you. And we asked you a devilish question in BenchPress this year. What is most important to you when it comes to your business? And the 4 choices we gave you were creating an asset. So are you looking to build a business that could be sold in the future? Purpose, building a business that has a positive impact on the world. Perhaps it was time, being in control over how much time you spend working and what you do in that time. Or maybe it was money, maximizing the amount that you earn. Now, the devilish bit of the question is that we force you to pick one of these. Because, of course, we probably want more of all of these things, right? But when you have to pick one, this is what you told us was most important. For agencies under $1 million, there wasn't a lot of difference between purpose, creating an asset, and time. Interestingly, money, the amount that you earn, was the least important of all of those things. But that changed once you got above $1 million fee income. This happened. For £1 million plus agencies, creating an asset suddenly got a lot more important. 46% said that that was the most important thing for them. Now, whichever of these is most important for you, there are stats in this report. There are stats that I will share tonight that will help you get more of whatever you want. And that is what I'd encourage you to focus on. How can you take whatever you want to get to the next level? How can you use these benchmarks, as several others have done before you over the last decade, as the impetus, the catalyst, the energy, the force to make you do some positive changes within your agency to build a brighter future? Now, let's have a look at what 2021 looked like for agencies. So the fact that we're still here after 2 years of a pandemic is a wonderful testament to the phenomenal hard work and energy and determination and courage that so many of us have put into the last 2 years. But 2021 was the year that agencies bounced back after a torrid time with COVID. So we've been tracking the percentage of agencies that have grown fee income for a long time now. And as you'll see, before COVID, this had tracked somewhere between sort of 63 and 79%. COVID hit, and in 2020, 49% or only 49% of agencies grew fee income. I suppose the other way to look at it, as we were doing last year when we were looking back at that stat, was, isn't it amazing that nearly half of agencies in the middle of the pandemic managed to grow? Well, this year, that figure rose to 84%. Now, that's stats for £1 million plus agencies. For agencies under $1 million, 70% managed to grow. And that is probably the first trend to take away from this year's benchmarks is that the larger agencies tended to outperform the smaller ones in almost every metric. The major exception being operating profit percentage, as you would expect. We'll come on to that later. But this is the first time, and not the last time, that you will see that larger agencies did better than smaller agencies. One of the reasons for this spurt in growth was the fact that 61% of agencies received funding during the pandemic. And this was a lifeline for many. You know, we asked a question in the report, what did you do with that money? And a lot of agencies said, well, we needed it to survive. There were a few agencies that said, well, we didn't need it and we paid it back. Some have said, we haven't needed it yet, we've still got it, don't know what to do with it. And there was a group that said, well, actually, we used it to grow our business. We used it to fund that growth. And there was a lot of chat in the agency collective community around people saying, well, I don't need this loan, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to use it to grow. I'm going to use it to hire. I'm going to use it to develop capability. I'm going to use it to invest in R&D. They were using it to achieve a greater growth rate. And they managed it. When we look at that subset of agencies that specifically used that loan, the funding that they received during the pandemic, to grow, they grew quicker than the others that didn't. They were much more likely to have grown by more than 25%. That's our definition of high growth, more than 25% of fee income growth in a year. Really interesting. So if you're sat there on cash, then you might want to think about how you can invest that for growth. Now, there's definitely a case for keeping some for a rainy day. You know, I'm a big fan of that. Not only does it help you sleep well at night, it just makes good business practice, good business sense. But once you get beyond that amount that you need for working capital and to help you sleep well at night, what are you doing with the rest of it? How are you going to invest it for future growth? Because those that did got better results. That's something to think about. That wasn't the only thing that grew in 2021. 73% of agencies managed to grow their teams. 56% managed to increase their hourly rate. 69% managed to increase profitability. And 55% of agencies increased the amount that they earned. And just looking at that last stat, I can tell you that agency owners are now earning more than ever before. Quite a bit more. Yeah, ooh, indeed. So let's have a look how much agency owners are earning, because this is one of those stats that everyone likes to know the answer to. And it's also one of the stats that, you know, there's lots of things that you can ask. We as you know, for those of you here tonight in London, I had a lovely bit of networking earlier, and you can ask questions like, how are you doing? What sort of clients are you working at? What's a typical project value? How much did you grow last year? This is one of those questions you cannot ask. How much are you earning? And is it more or less than last year? Well, we ask that question for you and we share that data because we're nice folk. So for agencies under $1 million, the sort of average point tends to be around about £50,000 a year. And if you look at the percentage of agency owners earning more than £50,000 a year, it is 58%, which is up from 51% last year. So that's agencies under $1 million. For £1 million plus agencies, they earn considerably more. The threshold for £1 million plus agencies is £100,000. That tends to be around about the average. 53% this year earned more than £100,000 in a year, up from 42% last year. Agency owners are earning more than ever before. And that's one of the reasons why confidence is at its highest level for 5 years. This is something we've been tracking for an awful long time. We ask a very simple question, rate your confidence out of 100. And as you can see, over the last few years, it's recovered from the COVID dip and is now at its highest level since 2017. So you can see the picture building. 2021 was a really good year for agencies, and there is confidence about what is coming. But there are challenges. And there are some new challenges and then some existing ones. And one of the existing ones that agencies are facing is this reliance on a single client. It's something I've been talking about for a long while, and it's really important that we, as an industry, get to grips with this. Particularly if, for those of you who said you are looking to sell your business, the number one most important thing to you is to create an asset. If that is you, then when it comes to someone valuing your business, if you have a single client or heavily reliant on a single client, your business will be devalued as a result because it is just quite simply a greater risk for the purchaser. So let's have a look at some stats behind this. We looked at the largest client as a percentage of fee income. And this is where you want to be, under 20%. You don't want a single client taking up more than 20% of your fee income. 42% of agencies are in that position, which is really good for those 42%. But for the 58, it's not a great place to be because, as you can see, 40% have somewhere between 21 and 40% of their fee income reliant on just one client. And then for 18%, it's above 40%, which is, you know, for those of you who experience those moments in early pandemic, so March, April 2020, where you were having phone calls from clients, cancelling projects, pulling contracts, saying everything's on hold. That is a terrifying place to be when you have a single client taking up a big chunk of your fee income. And there's some tips in the report that will help you move away from that. I'd love to be able to share better stats on this next year. Hopefully, you can all help me do that. There are other challenges, and this is kind of like the top of the pops bit where I share the 3, 2, 1 of the biggest challenges facing agencies. And at number 3, agencies are too busy working in the business to work on it. By the way, this is stats for £1 million plus agencies. For smaller agencies, agencies under £1 million, this is the #1 challenge right now. And I think this is largely due to what has happened over the last couple of years. Think about it, right? When COVID hit, I watched agency owners roll their sleeves up and get stuck in. I watched you work your socks off as you tried to save your businesses, support your team, support your clients, find a way through this. We rolled our sleeves up and we got stuck in. And a lot of agency owners haven't yet pulled themselves out of the day-to-day. And it's really important that you do. You recognize that this is a big challenge. A lot of people are stuck in the day-to-day and not spending enough time working on their business, on the strategy. We've always known this. Whenever we do our surveys, we ask, what do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? #1 thing people want to do more of, spend time on strategy. And those that do get better results. So we know it intuitively and it's backed up by the numbers. At number 2, the second biggest challenge for agencies, and this is quite big news because it's no longer #1, is winning new business. Winning new business always used to be the #1 challenge for agencies. It was like wet, wet, wet in 1994. You couldn't get it off the #1 spot. And then something came along to take its place. And that thing was recruitment. Yay. Well, not yay. Because it's really, really, really tough recruiting right now and retaining the best talent. And these 2 big challenges, we wanted to go into a lot more detail than ever before. And those of you who took part in the survey will know we asked very, very specific questions around recruitment and winning new business. And we will be sharing those in great detail at 2 webinars coming up. So recruitment and retention benchmarks, we've got a whole report on this, some great case studies. We'll be sharing what basically the top performing agencies are doing when it comes to their recruitment and retention strategies. And let me tell you, there is work for us to do, all of us here. I look at the reason why this is a challenge. We asked a couple of questions and it's so obvious, right? It's so obvious. And I'll be sharing what those things are on the 17th of May. When it comes to new business, on the 19th of July, I'll be sharing the new business benchmarks and we'll be looking at what a successful sales process looks like. We'll be looking at what the top performing agencies measure when it comes to their sales and marketing metrics, the resource they have in place, basically how you can set yourself up for success when it comes to new business. So that's coming. Tonight, I thought it'd be really interesting to share what high performance looks like right now. And in particular, what we've been able to do from the data this year is gather traits, 6 traits of high performance. And that's what I'm going to share with you right now. Let's get stuck in. So the #1 trait of a high-performing agency that we gathered from this year's data, and to be perfectly honest, I've been talking about a lot of these traits for a while. I just now have the data to back them up. So it's not just a trait for this year, it's a trait for all time. Measure gross profit often. And it's not just how often you measure it, it's making sure that you measure it right. Here is an interesting little stat around how to measure gross profit. 58% actually include their chargeable wages as a cost of sale when calculating gross profit. Now that means the other 42% put their chargeable wages as an overhead. Now that's not wrong. Sticking your chargeable wages as an overhead in your accounts is not wrong. It's just doing it this way, putting it as a cost of sale, will give you a much more meaningful metric of gross profit, one that you can compare to any agency of any size and benchmark yourself against the rest. And when it comes to that benchmarking, I just thought it'd be useful just to explain the formula to use. Now, I know I did this last year, but I make no excuse for sharing it again because it's really important. And there's also a new metric in town when it comes to, or a new benchmark in town when it comes to gross profit that will really challenge you. First of all, how to calculate it. So first of all, let's stop worrying about turnover. Let's get to the fee income first of all. Turnover is a vanity metric. Let's take off all of our recharge costs, ad spend, any travel expenses, and get to fee income. Once we've got fee income, we can then take off the chargeable wages, okay? So that's the wages of all of your team that are engaged in chargeable work. And someone asked me a question, they said, well, what happens to a manager? I've got a manager, do they count as chargeable? Well, if that manager is managing a team of chargeable people, then yes, they are part of that chargeable team. And someone said, well, I've got someone who does half their time on chargeable work and half time on something else. Well, that's fine, just count half of their salary in this. And it's all of their salary, it's all of their NI, it's all of the pension contributions, it's everything, all of that cost. Don't forget your freelancer cost as well. I see a lot of agencies forgetting their freelancer cost. You're just cheating if you're not putting a freelancer cost in there. There's no point. And this is the other interesting one, directors' market rate. So it's really important to calculate the amount of time that you spend doing client work and factor in a rate. Because if you're spending, I don't know, half of your time as a creative director and not counting that as a creative director's salary, or 50% of your time as a creative director's salary, you're getting a false figure for gross profit. And once you've got that gross profit, you divide it by fee income, times it by 100, that gives you your percentage. And last year, I shared a metric, which was the average gross profit percentage. And I told you that it was 44% of agencies. And when I stood up at BenchPress last year, I said, well, this is where we need to aim. We need to aim for 50% or more. And I run a service business too. And I know it's hard to hit 50% in a service business. It's really challenging. But that's what we needed to aim for last year. And then something happened. We started benchmarking consulting businesses. And that changed the game. So in the last 18 months, we've discovered that the average gross profit of consulting businesses isn't 44%, it's 55%. They make 11% on average more gross profit than agencies. And here's the thing, agencies and consultancies are starting to merge and become one. A lot of what we do as agencies, whilst it is creative, does a lot of the things that consultancies do. It achieves an end result. It helps increase the performance of the businesses that we're working with. And yet we're not getting the results of consulting businesses. And in the report, I explain a little bit about the three key differences between agencies and consultancies. And if you focus on those three things, you will get better results. So I have a choice today. I could have shared the benchmarks for agencies, but instead, I'm going to share the benchmarks for consultancies because I want us all to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Right? This is the beauty about benchmarking. You get to see what's possible. And once you see what's possible, you cannot unsee it, right? And these are the stats that I want you to be having in your head. This is where I want you to be aiming for. Only 21% of consulting businesses have a gross profit percentage of under 40%. 40% of them have a gross profit margin somewhere between 40 and 60%. Check this out. 39% of consulting businesses have a gross profit margin in excess of 61%. And we link to the report, the consultancy report from the agency report. When you look at the profit they're making, when you look at their day rates, when you look at how they calculate the multiple between their staff cost and what they charge, it will give you some clues as to what we all need to be doing to start achieving these results. So you have a choice. You can look at the agency benchmarks, but if you really want to hit top performance, go and have a look at what consultancies are doing. It will blow your mind. I talked at the start of this, where the trait was how often you measure it was important. It absolutely is. I can tell you, we asked the question, how often do you measure gross profit? 8% are either doing it never or annually. 11 do it quarterly. And I'm really pleased that 62%, which is where we should be doing it, either monthly or 19% on every job. Now, the more often you measure it, the more profit that you make. And this isn't just an indicator of gross profit, it's also an indicator of operating profit as well. So if you want to increase your operating profit, don't look at your stationary budget, don't tinker down there in your overheads. No, seriously, I chatted to an agency owner, and that's what they were planning on doing. They were planning on squeezing things down in their overheads. I think over the last couple of years, we're running pretty lean as businesses, but we have a workforce and we have a pricing strategy, and how we price and how we deliver is going to be our ultimate determinant of profitability. So that's where we need to look. Get our gross margin right, and it feeds into operating profit. And the stats that we're showing in this report are after you've paid yourself. So traditionally, operating profit in your accounts would be shown before you take dividends. And what we wanted to do is actually say, well, that's a bit of a false situation. Let's have a look at it as a percentage of fee income after you've paid these dividends. And this is how much money agencies are making. These are stats for £1 million plus agencies, by the way. So 4% didn't make a profit last year. Then we've got a quarter making somewhere between 1 and 10. 41% 11 to 20. And really, this is where we want to be aiming, is above 20%. It's hard. It's really hard. And those of you who've been doing this a while will know it's hard. But this is where we want to be, in this above 20%. Top performers, top 11%, 31% operating profit or more. And the stats for smaller agencies are better. They don't have the overheads that the larger businesses do. By the way, any questions as we go through this, don't forget you can go to wowco.uk/questions, and we'll be gathering those up both from online and here in London to answer later. The second trait of high performance that we gathered from this year's report was this. It's really important that we increase hourly rates. Now, those of you who have heard me talk before will know that I talk about this a lot. And the reason I talk about this a lot is because whatever rate you're charging, whatever pricing strategy you have, one thing I can tell you, I've always told you, is that your costs are creeping up. And right now, your costs are creeping up as quick as they ever have done. Inflation is at its highest rate for 70 years. Costs are creeping up and up and up every single year. And unless we increase our rates as well, our prices, then our margin is going to get squeezed. Last year, 56% of agencies increased pricing. That is not good enough. That should be 100. There is absolutely no reason why we all shouldn't be increasing our prices at least every year. I had a lovely chat with someone earlier who said, oh, I watched your video. I watched it just before Christmas, the price increase video. By the way, I linked to that from the report, and I bit the bullet. I was brave and I increased my prices, and it worked. I'm so pleased I did. I increased them by 20%. I'm really glad that I did. And there's been lots of chat about how to do this in the agency collective community. You know, increasing prices is hard, right? It's challenging, it's daunting. You worry about what's going to happen. And for those of you not familiar with the agency collective, it is an incredible community, the best peer support community for agencies in the world. And what this community does, as well as having great events, is they come together to learn and share experiences and to grow and to help each other through the day-to-day challenges of running an agency. And one of the challenges that all of our community are facing, that we're all facing, is this inflationary pressure. And it was wonderful to see that community come together to share tips, but also practical things like, here's a letter that I sent to my clients informing them of the fee increase. Wouldn't we like to get our hands on that letter or example of it so we could work out how we could adapt it to use it ourselves? But they're also tackling something I know a lot of us are concerned around, is how the cost of living crisis is going to affect our team. And we ran an event recently at the Agency Collective that tackled that. So if you're not a member, please go and check out the Agency Collective after this. It's a wonderful support to help you in whatever challenges that you're experiencing. The third trait of high-performing agencies is this. Agencies that do good get better results. And when I say get better results, what I mean is they grew quicker, they made more money, and their owners earned more. So agencies that do good, they grew quicker, they made more money, and their owners earned more. So first of all, let's have a look at what doing good means and exactly what agencies are doing. Because I've long believed, Paul and I, when we wrote our beautiful business manifesto all those years ago, we said that the purpose of a business is not to make money. It's to accomplish something, it's to do some good in the world. And right now, businesses, it's gone beyond just a case of should. It's now must. We absolutely must stand up and make sure that we are living with purpose and doing good in the world. And this is the good that agencies are doing right now. We looked at the percentage of operating profit spent on positive environmental and social impact, and this is what came out. So 23% aren't doing anything right now. The good news is that 77% of agencies are spending money on positive environmental and social impact. 31% are spending less than 1%. But look at this. We've got 40% spending between 1% and 5% of their operating profit on doing good, and 6% leading the way, spending up to 10% of their operating profit on positive environmental and social impact. Let's have a look at some of the initiatives that we're all getting involved in. 71% are making charitable donations. 48% are giving up their time for free to work for projects on charities. Then some environmental changes that are happening. We've got 41% taking active steps to move to net zero. 28% are planting trees to offset the carbon that they produce as a business. Now, there's been a lot of talk about net zero, and I just thought I'd just briefly explain what it is, because moving to net zero is something we all need to do, and we don't need to wait till 2030. We need to do it right now. This is our moment. Net zero means achieving a balance between the carbon emitted from the atmosphere by our businesses and the carbon removed from it. And we reach net zero when the amount we add is no more than the amount taken away. And if you're sat there thinking, I'm a digital business, I work from home, I don't have a carbon footprint. Of course you do. The moment you turn on your computer, you have a carbon footprint. Everything we do has a carbon footprint, and it's our responsibility to reduce that. This is something we've been doing at WOW for the last 2.5 years now. We've partnered with Ecology, which is a brilliant business that allows you to spend a small amount of money, and they will go and plant trees for you to offset the carbon you produce. And initially, when we did it at WOW, we weren't able to calculate our carbon footprint. So we took a number of employees, we took an average, and we worked out how many trees we needed to plant. And over the last 2.5 years, we planted nearly 15,000 trees. Just to be clear, not us personally. Ecology have done it. Thank you, Ecology. And there's a big innovation coming from Ecology. I know a lot of you will have your Ecology forests and planting your own trees. But the challenge has always been, well, how much carbon are we emitting and how do we reduce it? And now, thanks to Ecology Zero, we can track that. So it's still in beta phase. This is a piece of software that will track live in real time your carbon footprint as a business and allow you to reduce it. And we're going to be one of the first trialists. If you want to be one of the second trialists, you can go online and sign up for the beta version. This is what the future looks like, a greener, brighter future, and we can lead the way. Other things that agencies are doing, 26% are giving the team extra holiday to support charities, 14% are giving a percentage of their profits away to charity each year, 7% only do work for charities or companies that do good. They've set their stall out, say we are only going to work for companies that do good, and 1% have even set up their own charity or fund. Now, over the last decade, we have shared a lot of benchmarks relating to financial performance. Over the next decade, I can tell you now, our success will not just be measured by profit and loss. It will be measured by the good that we do. It will be measured by metrics like this. I'd encourage you all to think about what good you can do. Agencies that do good get better results. And in the report, I link out to a brilliant business that has been doing this for a while. He's in the room tonight, Matt from Platypus. You didn't know you were being linked out to in the report, even so. I know you look very startled, but the way that you talk about the positive impact that you have and analyze your, you look really startled, sorry, and analyze your, the good that you do, I think is phenomenal. And I think you're a shining example for what agencies can do. And we share your story in the report. So good on you, mate. The fourth trait of high-performing agencies is this: a global outlook is good for business. Now, COVID changed the way we think about location, right? It changed the way we think about where our teams are located and where our clients are located. And quite simply, those agencies that work internationally do three things. They grow quicker, they make more money, and their owners earn more. So let's have a look at the international work that agencies are doing. Agencies under $1 million, well, 26% aren't doing any. And then we've got 48%, somewhere between, up to 20%, and then the rest doing a little bit more than that. The interesting thing here is this 26%, I'd encourage you to think about how you can do some international work, how you can broaden your horizons. Let's have a look at larger agencies. That's only 9% of those of you who aren't doing international work. So whether you're in that 26% or in that 9%, I'd encourage you to think about how you could broaden your horizons. The reason that the agencies that have international work make more money is probably best illustrated by a story I heard from someone who had a particular niche. They were really good in a particular area. They were starting to not run out of opportunities, but they just sensed there might be wider opportunities elsewhere. And they used their particular niche to go and have conversations with people in different geographical markets. And that really, really helped them on their journey. It transformed their business. So for those of you who aren't doing any international work, for those of you who are maybe doing a little and would like to do more, just have a think about how you can dial that up in the next 12 months. Now, the fifth trait of high-performing businesses is this. It's really important that we win deals in excess of £50,000. This is a tipping point for agencies. Now, there is a correlation between deal size and profitability. There always has been. I've been talking about this for a long, long time, and now have the tipping point that I can share with you. That's the big revelation for this year. So this was probably best illustrated to me by a conversation I had years ago with Nikki Gattenby. At the time, she was running PropellerNet, a brilliant agency down in Brighton. And I remember hearing Nikki talk and chatting to her afterwards. And she just said something really profound and obvious, which was, well, she said, look, of course, bigger deals are worth more money than the smaller ones. A £250,000 job isn't 10 times the work of a 25 grand job. So we just try and win bigger deals. And we always push for bigger deals. And you think, well, of course it's not. Of course a £250,000 job isn't 10 times the work of a 25 grand job. So how we thought it'd be really interesting in this year's report to look at what clients are worth for agencies and look at minimum contract value, what a typical client is worth, and what your biggest client win was. So here's what I can tell you. The minimum contract value, the amount that you wouldn't get out of bed for, 66% of £1 million plus agencies won't accept projects less than 10 grand. So 2/3 will just say no. If you haven't got a 10 grand budget, we're just not interested. Only 37% of agencies under $1 million would say the same thing. When it comes to biggest client win, 21% of agencies have won a £1 million plus contract. Yeah, nice. Imagine the celebration. Now, the reason I put this slide up here is obviously that's a key milestone, but I'd encourage you all to think about what your biggest win was and how you can beat it. Because challenging yourself to beat your previous best will take you to new frontiers. And that is what tonight and why you're all here is to challenge yourself to go to new frontiers. So how can you win bigger contracts? And this £50,000 tipping point that we discovered, by the way, once you get above this £50,000 tipping point where you're consistently, or more often than not, winning projects in excess of £50,000, your profitability jumps significantly. This applies for 65% of £1 million plus agencies. They can say a typical project or a typical client is worth more than 50K. Only applies to 15% of agencies under $1 million. So we all can up our game here. Bigger projects equals more profit. Simple as that. So if you want to win bigger deals, of course you do. Having just seen that stat, of course you want to win bigger deals. Well, we can help you with this. So for those of you not familiar with Agency Bites, it's something that Rory's been running for several years now. And this is what we do. We bring agencies together to have roundtable debates around this subject. So we have some content, we have some insight, and Rory will share that with you. And then we split you off into groups and we ask you a simple question, which is, well, what have you done to increase your deal size? And the magic that goes on in those conversations is phenomenal. They're free to attend. Next week, you'll get an email inviting you to take part in those. They start in a couple of weeks. We've got 3 dates, and they will help you win bigger deals. They always do. The final trait of high performance, before we go to questions. Now, if you're going to take one thing away from tonight, it's this. The more you measure, the better you perform. The more you measure, the better you perform. Feels obvious, right? And yet, when I saw these stats, it blew my mind. What we did was we looked at not just gross profit and how often you measure that, but we looked at several other metrics. We looked at net promoter score. We talk about net promoter score in the report. It's a brilliant method of testing your customer engagement. We looked at employee engagement, how often you measure that. We looked at all your sales metrics and all your profitability, your marketing metrics. And we basically put people into 2 buckets, those that measure often and those that don't. And what we discovered was this. The operating profit of those that don't measure often is 18%. Those that do measure these metrics often shot up to 28%. There is a 10% increase in operating profit up for grabs here for those that can really get to grips with their numbers within their business. Really get to grips with the numbers in their business. So, tonight you've all given up your time to listen to this. I hope this isn't the end of your benchmarking journey. I hope this isn't the end of your intrigue into the numbers within your agency. I hope this is the start of a journey where you get really curious about measuring and exploring the numbers in your business. Numbers that you'll be reading in the report, that you'll be getting via email in an hour or so. If you would like to take your reporting up a level, we can help you with it. This is what we do at WOW every single day. We've always said for years, any accountant can crunch the numbers. Anyone can. Our job is to give you insights. Our job is to add value to your business. Our job is to help you take your reporting up a level and give you the intel to build better, more beautiful businesses. That's what we do. And if you would like that, we'd love to chat to you afterwards. In terms of what happens next, we'll be going to questions shortly. But before we do, there are some thank yous to make, because tonight is a phenomenal undertaking. First of all, let's just look at tonight. Tonight's not just one event, it's 2 events. We've organised a face-to-face event here in London, and we've organised an event online for the people at home. And a massive thanks goes to Gayatri, who's organised the whole thing and done a brilliant job. So thank you to Gayatri for all your help. I really, really appreciate it. We're back to my incredible tech team. The team at Motif have done a brilliant job of streaming this out to the hundreds of agencies watching online. Thank you to Motif. Thank you to Charlie as well, our camera operator, who's done a brilliant job as well. And to the team at Folk. So Folk are our design agency. We've been working with them for several years. And they do lots of design work for us, most of which they enjoy. And then there's BenchPress, where we come along and say, right, here are a load of stats, a load of ideas, and by the way, over the next few weeks, I'm going to change them constantly, and I'd like you to put all of that somehow miraculously into a report that looks beautiful and is easy to read and is insightful and wonderful. And a massive thanks to the phenomenal patience and skill shown by Brett and his team to help produce the reports. But the endeavour to produce the reports is beyond Folk as well. We have a team of proofreaders, and a big thanks to Ewan, who helped create the stats for this as well. A big thank you to everyone that helped make this possible, and also to all the partners who helped spread the word. I've said this is only as good as the people that take part, and so many of you have helped spread the word about this telling your friends, spreading the word on social. And I'm hugely grateful to that. Finally, big thanks to everyone that's taken part over the years. 10 years in, honestly, I had no idea that we would end up here. Over 2,000 people taking part in a survey, global, sharing these stats, sharing these insights. And that is all down to you. It's all down to you. If you don't take part, this doesn't exist. So a massive, massive thank you to everyone that's taken part this year and every year for the last decade. You help make it all possible. I'm hugely grateful. Thank you very much. It's time for questions. Right.
That's awesome. Well done.
Cheers.
You had a drink, yeah?
Yeah. Try not to fall off this chair.
Well, great work. I think on behalf of everyone, we can say that was terrific. Well done. And can I just say how good it is to be here in London? I couldn't let you have all the credit, could I?
No,
I couldn't let you take all the glory. But no, there's lots of really cool questions coming in. Anyone that's got them, that link is still live. Keep sending them through. But Gayatri's done a great job of sending these through to me. So to kick off with, when you say spending profit on good, is this time or money?
It's both. You saw there from what agencies were doing that it's a combination of both. Some agencies are giving up their own time. Some are giving up their team's time. Some are, changing the whole strategy around making sure that they're positioned to do good. And some, as well as that, are just putting money aside as well and saying, well, we're going to give money to people who do this professionally, who know what they're doing, and that's their way of doing good. There's one, they're not an agency, they're a consultancy that I discovered in my benchmarking work with them, that gives away 90% of their operating profit to good causes. 90%. They're called 90, actually, if you want to check them out. And they list out all of the projects that they've worked on, all of the good that they do, and they're a great inspiration for all of us in terms of what top performance looks like when it comes to doing good. And that, their version of it is giving 90% of their operating profit away to good causes.
Yeah, I love that. It's quite funny. I saw this question come in and it made me laugh because it's like, who are we to say, if you're spending time or profit on good, well, is there good or is there bad good? Anything that you're doing is brilliant, right? Whether you're giving time to training up people that are in colleges and universities and helping with that recruitment challenge, or whether it is things like the social stuff and the environmental stuff. Like, either way, I think if you can be doing that stuff, your team are going to love it and engage with you better. That just spreads goodness, right? And everybody sees that. So I think it's really cool. The second question here, since BenchPress started 10 years ago, what's the biggest change you've noticed in agency businesses?
So that's a good question. And I would say agencies have got a lot better at niching. When we started this, the word digital agency, well, it was maybe even before digital agency, it was just marketing agency. That's what we used to call ourselves, right? Marketing agency. It was just a big lump of marketing agencies, and then the disciplines started to be created, but then they all sort of clumped around digital when that was the thing in the early days. And what I see now is agencies have realized that if you really want to achieve the best results, if you want it to be amongst the top performers, you need to specialize, you need to niche, you need to find a very, very specific thing that you can be the best in the world at. And I see that in the data, not just that the ones at niche perform better, but that there is this move towards niche. So last year, I think we had 23 different types of categories of agencies take part in the survey. This year, it's 38. There's only marginally more, by the way, number of people taking part, but it's just that those people, roughly same number of people, have just said, well, actually, I'm not going to call myself a digital agency anymore because I'm going to specialize in this thing here. So it's that move towards niche, and it's going back to the the thing I sort of hinted at in the report. It's one of the things that consultants do better than agencies, I'm sorry to say, and that's why they get better results when it comes to profitability, and they can charge more when it comes to day rates. It's that niching, and I just encourage you, wherever you're at with your niching, you can go deeper. You know, there's niche products, there's niche markets, and if you can get a niche product for a niche market, you're going to do really, really well. And I know a lot of you are there, so just keep going.
What I'd add to that, I feel quite passionately that there's kind of two sides to specialising, right? So you can specialise and you can know that you specialise, and your team can know what it is you're really good at doing and who you work with. But the other side of that is external. So actually your positioning is so crucial. You can specialise all you like, but actually if that particular industry that you specialise in, they don't see that, they don't feel that, you're not doing that externally, it's kind of not much good, right? Like, you need to be able to work on your positioning as well, so that both internally, you and your team know this is what we do really well, and then the clients that you're going after also go, look, these are the guys that specialise in this particular sector. So yeah, I think there's two sides to it. Cracking. Third question. Are you surprised how few agency owners are focused on the money that aren't focused on the money they make personally, and how many are focused on building a saleable asset?
So the saleable asset thing did surprise me, and the reason it surprised me, speaking perfectly frankly, is I don't see agencies doing a particularly good job of building a saleable asset. I'm really sorry to say, is they're just not thinking like they're building a saleable asset. They are working and delivering, not focused on systems and processes. They're not focused on stepping out of the day-to-day, reducing their dependency on themselves, reducing their dependency on their largest client. They're just ticking along with the old habits that they had when they were a small agency. And when you're small, all you need to worry about is selling and delivering, right? That's all. I was there. I remember 18 years ago when we set up Wow, that's all we had to do. We had to find some clients and then do their accounts, and that was it. We just keep doing that and do it better and better, and word spread. But as you grow, you have to, if you want to build a saleable asset, there's more that you have to do. You have to really think about all the things Roy talked about, your positioning, your strategy, and crucially, how you can build value in your business. So yeah, I was really surprised when I saw that, because it is not matched by the behavior of agencies, unfortunately. And that's something that needs to be addressed. If you want to build a saleable asset, you need to sharpen up on this. You need to decide you want to do it. You need to engage with people that know how to do this and can help you on that journey to adding value and building value in your business. There's no other way to do it. You won't fluke your way to it, or very few will fluke their way to it.
You actually mentioned a few stats as well, like reliance on a client, overseas work. Like, they're both key things for building a saleable asset, right? So
yeah, and again, not all revenue is the same. In the report, we look at the amount of revenue on retainers, and those of you who've ever sold an agency or ever had someone inquire to yourself as to the value of your business will know that those contracts, those retainers, are worth more than ad hoc revenue. So you just need to think about all of the things that are going to... there's a great thread in the Agency Collective Slack about this, what makes up a value of an agency. And you just need to think about those things and then work hard on those metrics. At the moment, there's not enough conscious strategy around what is it that makes a saleable business, and then working on those metrics. So yeah, that's something for us, if that's what you want, something to work on.
Yeah. This is a really juicy question. You've talked about the traits of the highest performing agencies. What's one trait you noticed in the poorest performing agencies?
Well, do you know what? I see the symptoms, and the symptoms are not charging enough, but the cause is lack of confidence, right? And so that confidence to be able to say, I'm worth it, we are worth it, we do great work, and we are not going to accept anything less than charging a fair price for our work. That is something that blights the financial performance and the sleep of so many agency owners. And I really feel for you if you find yourself in that position. But finding that confidence, finding that mojo to say, yeah, we are worth it, and we are going to charge what we are worth, is going to be key to all of our successes this year and beyond. And I'd love to all give you the confidence that I see in consultancy firms, but that I see that your work deserves. You know, I see so many people who are so good at what they do, but don't realise it, don't have the confidence to charge for it, and that is a great shame. And I'd love, you know, I see regional differences as well, by the way, with this. I'm not going to mention any particular regions, but I've travelled a little bit around the UK, and when I go to certain places, I see no less talent, but I see a lot less confidence, and that confidence is holding people back. So find a way. I think the best way to build confidence is those incremental steps. Do something that scares you and realise it wasn't so scary. This is what I guess when it comes to pricing. Do it a little bit and a little bit and a little bit more, and just keep pushing yourself out of your comfort zone when it comes to your pricing strategy. And if you hit roadblocks, it's because you're not speaking to the right clients. Go and find better clients. It might be, by the way, it might be your positioning, as Rory mentioned, but just keep going with that incremental challenge to get out of your comfort zone. That's what we all need to do.
And it sounds obvious as well, but the perfect time to do that experimentation with pricing and putting prices up and playing around with it is when you've got a great pipeline, right? Like when you've got a healthy pipeline, you're in a position where you don't have to win this next project because you know what, there's others coming. You know, we could afford to not win this one. Well, let's have a little experiment then. Let's see how we get on. Can we charge a little bit extra for this? Can we add some project management time on for that? And you'll quickly see, you'll start kicking yourself because you'll start winning the work and go, oh God, we've not been charging for that for years. You know, could we have done this whole time? So yeah, I think that's the perfect time. You know, if you're in that situation, that's a great opportunity. Cracking. So next one, following on from the high-performing business. So interesting 6 traits of a high-performing business. I agree with them all. It's always good.
Phew. So relieved.
I'm interested that a high-performing team or good talent and culture isn't in that top list.
So it's a fair point, because this report focus is on client work and financial performance. The talent, recruitment and retention benchmarks are released in May. I think it's the 19th, it might be the 19th or 17th of May. It's in the report, and that's where we will talk about that. But clearly, the reason recruitment is the number one challenge right now is because we all know how important finding great people is to our business, to our current success and our future success. And let's just think back to all of our time as in business. When things are going well, it's because we've got great people doing a great job. When things are not going well, it's because we've got, more often than not, it's people challenges. And so it's a very good point. Of course, it's right up there, high-performing teams. We tackle exactly what a high-performing team looks like. We look at, there's 2 stats that are just screaming out at us that shows that we need to take action when it comes to recruitment and retention. And I appreciate I'm teasing you all by not telling you what they are, but if you come on the webinar and when you see them, it's so obvious, and you'll be able to make some adjustments that are simple to comprehend. Perhaps, you know, it might be challenging to actually implement, but they're simple to get started with anyway, that I think will make a really, really big difference. Well, the stats show us that it will make a big difference. So yeah, high-performing teams for sure.
Yeah. We've got an accountancy question.
Oh no.
It's all right, it's not a technical one. But my accountant runs our management accounts and doesn't calculate gross profit in the way that you do. What's the right way?
There is no right way. Genuinely, there is no right way of doing it. As you can see, there's a split, 58, 42%. If you put your chargeable wage cost down as an overhead, so the opposite of what I suggest, what you are unable to do is work out how well your team are performing. The beauty of putting it above the line as a cost of sale is not just you can see gross profit as a whole, but you can do some really interesting stuff, particularly with a larger business and the way you categorize your accounts function. You can look at gross margin by department, by team, by product or service. That's where it starts to get really interesting, because suddenly you can't just say, well, look, our average is 44%. You'll be able to see, hang on a minute, we make 60% over here with this team and 30% over there with that team. I remember having this conversation with an agency that did 50% of their work was web builds, 50% was SEO. And they did okay. They did perfectly fine. But the second that we showed them, we split out their chargeable wages and said, well, hang on, let's look at the revenue you got from web and take off the people that did that and did the same for SEO. They were making no money on web builds, absolutely zero. And they're making all their money from SEO. And from that moment, they said, well, we are simply not taking on a web build unless it leads to an SEO contract, unless we have an SEO contract in place. We will, because we understand the two go together, we will build your website, but unless you've signed for a retainer for SEO, we're not doing it. And that completely transformed their performance. I said earlier, once you see a stat, you cannot unsee it. You simply can't. And once we showed them that, then they couldn't forget it. And they changed their entire strategy, and it resulted in, well, they sold their business this year for lots of money, so good on them. It changed everything for them, and it could change everything for you too. So the message to that person whose accountant is doing the other way is it's not wrong, but there's a whole world of insight awaiting you if you do it the other way. So I'd encourage them to change.
That was a good answer. You held back. Thought you'd go in stronger there, but it is true though. I think, you know, there's gross profit, and then there's gross profit by department, gross profit by service. And if you can get that stuff, a bit like Pete said, not only can you see the stuff that's not really making you any money, you can see the stuff that's highly profitable, and then you can put that in the shop window, you know, and you can say, this is the stuff that you need to be buying from us. And let's run a report of all our existing clients. What are they not buying from us? You know, are they not buying this service? Well, let's go and give them a call. Let's take them out for lunch. So I think, to echo what Pete said, there's no wrong way of calculating gross profit. There's just a right way. You held back, I'll say it. So next question. This is an interesting one. So bigger agencies do better. Do they do better because they are bigger, or are they bigger because they do better? Tongue twister.
So it's this particular year that really struck me that almost every metric, you'll be able to see it for yourself. So even if you'll get both reports. You don't need to compare them. You know, I've done that for you. So even in the under report, we bring in a couple of stats from the larger agencies and vice versa. I think it's because it's their scale that ensures that they do better, and their experience. And you know, I've been in business 18 years. When COVID came, whilst none of us had experienced COVID before, we'd experienced previous challenges before. We had the playbook, we knew what we need to do, and we also had an incredible team backing us up. We weren't alone, and that's what the larger agencies had, that the smaller agencies didn't. There was, you know, if you're on your own and you have a small team, whilst that does give you the opportunity to be nimble, actually in this scenario, it was the businesses that bounced back were benefited by having those larger teams, having that greater experience, and it was because they were bigger that ensured that they got better results. I think. What do you see? What do you see some of the larger agencies doing that maybe the smaller ones aren't?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'd add to that is, you know, we've seen it sadly, like that. You know, you have large agencies, bigger agencies, £1 million plus agencies that will go bust, you know, at fairly short notice, right? If they don't have cash reserves in particular, you know, it's really volatile, it's really difficult. So I don't think it's fair to just say, you know, bigger agencies are better just because they're bigger. You know, there's the same risks. I think you've got to have processes in place, you've got to have systems in place. I think it goes back to, again, what Pete was talking about earlier, reliance on single client, cash flow, money that, like, how diverse your income is as well, where it's coming from, different sources. Can you go internationally? I think if you can tick a lot of those boxes, that's going to help you regardless with how sustainable you are basically as a business.
So the cash flow is an interesting one. I didn't talk about it tonight, but it's covered in the report. Larger agencies, as a percentage of overheads, hold more cash than smaller agencies. I guess they've been going longer, they've accumulated it, they've less hand to mouth than smaller agencies, and that gave them the extra resilience to ride out, you know, without maybe making so many cuts, to continue to invest in their sales and marketing, and to come back stronger. So I think that cash position is really helped. And there's a really interesting stat from the report, actually. We looked at the agencies that took funding and those that didn't, and what we noticed was that the ones that that had more cash before COVID had more cash after it, basically. So whether you took funding or not, if you're good at managing your cash, you've always been good at managing your cash, and it's just a really good habit to get into. So I'd encourage you to think about how many months of overheads you keep in the bank and how you monitor that, and good systems and processes. Of course, I'd encourage you to do that. We're an accountancy practice, so something to think about.
Yeah. We've got questions still coming in, by the way, so I think we've probably got time for a few more. I've got a few more on my screen. If you've got any more, keep them coming, but we've probably got time just for a handful more. So next question, this is a tricky one. Is there a correlation between recruitment and retention being #1 challenge and Brexit?
I have no idea. Is the short
Anyone?
answer. So, look, I'm a great believer in, as soon as we start blaming other things, it's outside of our control. As soon as we can say, I have control over this, I can impact this, we are empowered, right? So I've always taken the view, I don't worry too much about external circumstances. I look at what I can affect and what we can all affect, and teasers now for what's coming in the next webinar, the recruitment intention benchmarks, is first of all how much time we spend on recruitment and retention. Not enough time is being spent in it, and look, I know what that feels like. When we set up WOW, I just thought culture would take care of itself. I really did. I thought, well, sort it all out. Well, of course you can't. It doesn't work like that. You need to really be conscious about the culture that you're creating and invest time in it. You need to think about your recruitment as well. So a lot of agencies fail to think about recruitment like they do new business. So with new business, you'll have someone in charge of it. You'll have a plan. You'll be doing stuff constantly, right, to win new clients constantly. And yet we don't expect new clients to just turn up. We do stuff to go and get them, and we work on our conversion rates and selling ourselves to them. And yet we expect candidates to just turn up, knock on our door and go, oh, you look great to work with. I'll start tomorrow. It ain't going to happen. And we need to put the same amount of effort that goes into our recruitment, so into our new business, into our recruitment. That's absolutely step one. We need to put the effort in. And there are a whole load of other things that we need to do. We need to look at our interview process. We need to look at how we look after our teams. We look at how we measure engagement. There's a whole load of stuff. Honestly, like Brexit and other things that are outside of our control, you can't affect them. You can't affect them. It's like the weather. So concentrate on the things that are in your control. And right now, the amount of time you spend, there we go. The biggest thing we can all do is spend more time on recruitment and retention. Thinking about it, doing stuff every single week. If we do that, we'll be in a better position. Simple as that.
Great advice. Yeah. This is an interesting one. I've got a bit of a case study for this one. So, are there any agencies working on making their production more sustainable rather than just offsetting it or doing charitable work? So, what's quite interesting, I don't know if Xavier is here from Studio Zag. No, I saw he was signed up, but we work with Xavier at Studio Zag. They're a really cool agency. They do a lot of physical production, shop windows, things like that. I think they do, Selfridges Christmas. We've all seen it. We've all taken photos outside. And interestingly, they actually put options in front of their clients now for, hey, look, well, we could do this. This is option A, but just so you know, this is going to be the carbon output for this. And hey, look, this is option B. We can do this in a slightly more sustainable way. We can use some recycled stuff here. We've already got a few things that we can use for this particular set. And I think that's awesome. That's amazing. I know they're in a unique situation. We probably can't all relate to that. They're doing a lot of physical production, but it just shows that they're thinking about it. And I'm a huge believer that if they can do that and they can put that in front of their clients, that's going to give them the edge over their competitors who are not doing that stuff. Even just if they're thinking about it and giving their clients the option, I think that's really cool. So that's the case study I've got for that.
So you told me something interesting around how agencies are using their sustainability credentials in pitch processes. Do you want to explain a little bit what you told me the other day?
Yeah. So we spoke earlier in the session around picking up more projects worth 50K plus. I think as you start to move into that territory, you start to have to go through procurement processes, unfortunately, and it is a little bit trickier. The larger they get, the more hoops you've got to jump through. But what we're seeing more and more now is that procurement process, they're not just worried about the figures anymore. Actually, that's kind of a thing of the past. They're not just worried about saving the pennies. They're looking at your sustainability, the environmental and the social impact that you're having, your diversity and inclusion within your team as well and on your senior management teams. And I think that just shows that, again, this isn't something that you can react to. If you're in that process and they ask you, hey, look, how many women have you got on your board, for example, and you're not already doing that, then it's too late. You need to be thinking about this stuff now. You need to get ahead of it. You need to be proactive with this stuff because people are asking about it and it's going to make a big difference. Cool. So the next question, we've got 4 more.
All right. Let's do this.
So this one here, how about building an asset for the employees in the form of a trust?
Yeah, so there's, we've seen a few of our clients look at this. So there's the employee benefit trusts, which is one option of giving ownership to employees. But that's not just the only option. So there, as well as trusts, there's more and more agencies looking at retention strategies around bonus schemes and share schemes, locking in the top performers within their agencies through these share schemes. So there's lots of ways that you can share the ownership around and incentivize your top performers to stay. And it's something that Natalie, our head of tax, works a lot on. So we've got someone over at WOW with some really interesting insights to help with that. So if that's something you're thinking of, then give Nat a shout for sure.
Yeah, and I think just to add a small point to that as well, we're talking about building a saleable asset. It's really hard to successfully sell an agency to another agency, right? Really, really difficult. But actually, if you can position that as you've got some people within the team that you see as future leaders and you can have the conversation with them early of, hey, look, I don't want to be doing this forever. I see myself stepping back in 5 years. There's potential that there's a role for you here. Actually, would that be interested? Would that be interesting for you? I think that's a different way of exiting and selling the business that people, unfortunately, they don't kind of think ahead to. You kind of need to be having those conversations ahead of time. But that's an alternative option.
There's also management buyouts. I know an agency that successfully passed it on to the management team, and they raised finance to do that, to complete the buyout. So there's lots of different options out there. The key is, what's your plan? What's the future look like? What's the end game look like? And then you can work towards that.
This is really funny because I've just seen the next question is about agencies transitioning to employee-owned and as an alternative to an exit. So yeah, we've ticked that one off, I think. Next question. So time tracking and charging hourly rates is still controversial. We should charge for value and not have people doing timesheets is a frequent call. What are Peter and Rory's views? Is it the more you measure, the better you perform?
So it's really interesting. So we don't do timesheets at WOW. Okay, so we're a service business just like everyone here. We've got lots of clients and we have lots of potential for profit to leak out of our business every single day. But what we do track is our gross profit in the way that we showed, and we track that by department. So we're able to see how we're performing, and that's what we all need to be able to do, is see how we're performing. Whether that's through timesheets, where you can look at it project by project, whether it's looking at departments on a monthly basis, but there needs to be some mechanism in place to ensure that you know how you're performing and teams are performing. And obviously what timesheets give you is how individuals are performing. We know they're not popular. But you need to find a way to measure your success, and you need to work out what's right for your agency. And then once you've got that, just go deep into the detail. There's not just gross profit, there's gross profit by department, there's gross profit by client. That's the other thing. How many of us can have a league table of profitability by client? These are the details that really, really matter. So yeah, find a way to go to the next level.
Yeah, and of course there's a mention there of value-based pricing. I mean, feels like a dirty word that's been going around for 3 years now. Everyone wants to do value-based pricing. It seems like a lot of people don't even really know what it is. But like that is the place to go. I think Blair Ends, you've probably heard me and Peter talk about Blair Ends before. Like that's definitely your place to start. Pricing Creativity, Win Without Pitching, 2 brilliant books to check out because he quite literally writes the book on this stuff. But like that is the place to go. You know, if we're just selling time for money, it's just going to be so difficult. And I don't want to sound like a broken record because I mentioned this earlier, but again, I think that comes back to your positioning. You know, if you can be positioned as an expert in a certain area and an expert at delivering for this type of client, this type of business, then actually people are going to be willing to pay a premium to work with you because they know you've got that expertise, you've got that insights, and that is going to be much more powerful than simply saying, hey, I can give you 8 hours of time and this is what you're going to have to pay for it. Oh, but I can get it cheaper elsewhere. So definitely, I think that's the goal. Awesome. And last question, quite an easy one. You've got some stats for this.
Yeah.
This is a good tester for how much is actually in your brain.
Right, okay.
And if you're going to have to check, but how much cash as a multiple of your overheads should you have in the bank?
Well, I can tell you what it must be more than. I can't tell you the exact number, and there's a reason for this. So operating hand to mouth, but with 1 month of overheads as cash in the bank is where we absolutely must never be. We must never be. It must be more than a month. But how much more than a month depends, okay? And it depends on a few things. First of all, it depends on, probably the biggest thing it depends on is your attitude to risk. So I know some agency owners that say, what do I want to store a load of cash for? I want to invest it. I like operating close to the wire. And if that's you, I'd probably encourage you to just move away from that wire a little bit, please. But I definitely understand that there's those types of people. And then there's other types that say, well, unless I've got 12 months of cash in the bank, I freak out. So there's definitely an attitude to risk thing. There's also your ability to collect cash makes a big difference. So there's a huge difference between, let's take 2 extremes. You're an agency that has 500 clients that pay you on direct debit on the first of the month versus an agency that has maybe 3 or 4 big clients that pay you on 90 days and there's big invoices. So the volume of invoices, the value of invoices, and your collection method and the payment terms all contribute to how much cash you need. Because in the first example, lots of clients on direct debit paying you first of the month. You've got incredible predictability there. You're not reliant on one client. If a few disappear, it's not the end of the world. You could argue that actually having just 1 month in pay is fine because you've got the working capital there that you need. You know you've got predictability of cash flow. At the other end of the scale, if you're sending out big chunky invoices and then checking your bank balance, hitting refresh every few hours, seriously, and I know people that do that, we've all been there. I just remember chatting to one of our clients and I said, you don't sound right. Are you all right? And he's like, honestly, I've not slept for 3 or 4 days. I keep being told, you know, we've got £250,000 invoice waiting to be paid. And I keep being told it's coming. And I'm losing sleep over it. And I'm like, I'm not surprised. I would too. So if you have, you know, if you're in that camp, then you're going to need more cash to ride out those times where clients might take a little bit longer. So there is no right answer, but you need to think about what is the right level for you. And once you've worked out that, then what's interesting is, okay, well, hang on, what's the excess? So whether it's 2 months or 12 months, once you've worked out that amount, then look in your bank and go, well, hang on, what's the excess? Because then you've got a choice. Well, what do I do with that? Because at the moment, I don't need that for working capital. I don't need that to help me sleep at night. So what am I going to do with it? Am I going to do what some of the businesses did through COVID and use that to invest and grow? Am I going to draw it out, am I going to stick it in other ventures? You'll see, not only did we ask how much agencies are earning, but we asked how you're paying yourself, and whether that's through pension contributions or tax efficient structures and trusts, or whether that's taking the money out and putting it into other ventures. More and more agencies are doing that. So have a think about what you want to do with that spare cash once you've worked out how much you need. But how much you need will be individual to everyone here.
Spot on.
Cool.
Nothing I could add, and that is it. Yeah, we're through.
Fab. So for those of you watching at home, I'm just going to bring up the slide with the reports. The reports are going to be emailed to you, but if you cannot wait, there are links on screen that will allow you to access them now. For those of you here in London, we've got a bar to go to. So we don't need to look at benchmark reports. We can look at those on the way home. So please head to the bar. There's a cash bar and there's more canapes as well. So lovely if you could join us all later for a wonderful celebration of not just benchmarks, but agency life. We're all still here, and thanks so much for coming. Cheers.